Welcome to my new garden tour. This is going to be a new series I'm going to start doing for 2023. I'm going to log basically the progress of my garden. If anyone actually wants to watch it, then great, but if not, I'm going to be using it mostly for reference for myself for next year, so I know what's growing, where and when. So at the moment we're at the 21st of March, I think it is today. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. We've had quite a nice day sunshine wise. It's been 17 degrees. We're still getting kind of down to about freezing at night time though. So this is as you come in through my side gate. You come in, you're in, see this phormium. It's looking a little bit sad, and then next to that we have a fig tree. Unlikely to be having any figs this year because the frost has killed off all of the little tiny pea-sized ones, but we'll still get a good show of leaf on this. The phormium's going to need to be staked up, I think, give it a bit more of a graceful kind of appearance and give me some space underneath it. Next to that is this Chimerops volcano. This is a couple of years old now. I bought it as quite a sizable plant, but as you can see it's about 4-5 foot tall now and about 5 foot wide. It's not too bad. It's suffered a little bit of damage here, but you know there's plenty of new growth coming through. Between the Chimerops and the phormium there is a Musa scamensis that has been completely knocked back by the frost. That's probably going to be lifted. If it regrows, then I'll find somewhere else for it, but I'm going to find something else to go in its spot. During the summer I have a type of persicaria that grows in amongst this. It's one of the plants we actually inherited when we started this area, and it comes up every year and is a fantastic grower, so I'm going to keep growing that through there. Moving around, we have the last remaining clump of Miscanthus giganteus. We did have 4. I removed 3 of them. Each one was about this size. The root ball was about the size and weight of a small car engine, about 100 kilos roughly. We've got another fig here. Again, no fruit on this one. Coming through, we have a Fargesia. Then through here, we have Firestachys vivax aureocolus. This is about 3 or 4 years in the ground. I think 4 years in the ground now. As you can see, has got some serious height to it, has got root barrier in. The oil tanker is just behind it, so the root barrier is stopping it going that way. It is open, come out this way if it wants. It hasn't yet. If I see it popping up, though, I will probably be taking it out because we have a summer house on the other side of the Fargesia. At the back here we have a Rosa Banksia lutea. I'm not a fan of roses, but this is my favourite plant in the entire garden basically. It's a thornless rose. You can see there's no thorns on that whatsoever. It goes to a double yellow flower in about April time, so in a few weeks time we should start getting some buds forming. And then I need to give this a cut back because it is growing huge. Coming through here, we're going to start seeing some damage from the frosts. First up is my fat shedder. This has been untouched by the frosts in recent years. This year it's been quite severely hit. You can see in there a lot of dieback on it. That's all dead, but it will regrow from lower down, I'm sure. And next to that, Fatsia japonica, bulletproof, but it will take a bit of frost damage. These tops have gone on them, but it's not a bad sized plant now. That's been about 4 years so far. Then we have a fascicular bicolour. I need to lift and divide that this year. It's getting a little bit overgrown in this pot. Then we have some hostas and stuff down here. This is normally where one of my largest brugmansias goes, and the stem comes up to about here, and then you get the leaves and flowers overhead. We have an ornamental cherry, so that'll be in blossom soon. You can see some buds just starting to form on it. Then into this little courtyard in front of the summer house, we've got a few bits and pieces, some sedums. Got a Fatsia polycarpa green fingers down there that I bought about this time last year, still in its pot. I need to plant that somewhere. A couple more bits of ferns, some hostas, more ferns, Bulbergia nutans, looking very sad in its pot, and then one up in here looking also very sad. But we do have some green growth, so I will get some more off of that. Then we have probably the biggest plant in the entire garden. I forget what variety it is, but it is obviously the eucalyptus. I had it pruned last year because it was up to the, I forget if it's a phone or power line. It was really quite close, so we've got that cut back. I need to do a bit more pruning again. This branch here is reaching up as close as it can get. Then in here, this is one of my main clumps of Musabasju. Been hit quite hard by the frosts this year, but you can see I cut this back the other day and we've already got some new growth pushing through. That bit is rotten, yes, but obviously there's something in there pushing through. These stems are very, very squidgy, all the way down to about there, but you can see I've taken some sizable pseudo stems off of this bad boy. I think if I remember right, this one actually had some flowers on it last summer, so it was due for being cut back anyway. Then in here we have the loquat tree. This was in bloom, doing fantastically up until about late December, and yeah, got hit hard. Plant itself is absolutely fine, no signs of damage. It is literally just the flowers, so no fruit. Not had any fruit before. I don't expect fruit. I'm only down in southeast, I'm not in London, so we don't really get it mild enough. Behind the eucalyptus we have Phyllostacheus nigra, so I'm expecting these. I've got another this and one other culm, expecting them to snuff it in the next year or two, if everyone is saying that they are flowering. We'll see. I'm not seeing any signs, showing a little bit of damage from last year's drought, but other than that it's not showing signs of flowering just yet. Then down here we have some hostas, the stem of a perennial, forget what one this is. It's a begonia of some kind, I forget now. Underneath loquat we have a euonymus. Then we have a couple more little shrubs. This bit's where I normally plant, that hole is where I plant an Enseti. And then behind here in the container I have my Gunnera tinctoria, not a manicata as far as I'm aware. I'm going to be digging out this whole area, taking these dead evergreens back to the trunks, and I'm going to be digging down, laying some pond liner and building a nice bog garden for that to grow in this year. Lots of crocosmia in this garden. We inherited large clumps of it and I've just dotted it around because it was a cheap, free, easy plant to grow through here. Then we have some Ligularia popping through. This one is Ligularia Przewalski, I think it is. We've got passion flower. I expect that probably died back to the roots this year, we'll see. I don't normally tidy it up, so we'll let it do its thing. And then coming over the pond we have my Dixonia, looking very sad. I did not protect it at all this year. I don't normally, but I've felt in today. The knuckles are good, they're solid. There's a little bit of growth coming through, so you know, a couple more months time that will have fully outgrown all the damage there. Pond itself is looking okay. My wife, bless her, has spent a couple of afternoons pulling out the oxygenator. It started as a 9 centimetre clump on this side, and within about 3 years it's taken over most of this pond, so she's going to spend a bit more time getting in there and clearing some out. Somewhere in there is a white giant. That's normally fine over winter. This winter it's got taken back. I think I've seen a few new shoots for it, so it should pop back through. Then here we have a Scheffler Taiwania. This has been absolutely unfazed by the frost. We've had it at least -10, if not -15. The growth point has now rotted. You can see rotted there. But whether it continues to grow, I don't know. It's been shooting this last year anyway from the base, so we're now getting a nice multi-trunk coming through, which has been quite nice. I would like a bit more height, but if the other stems can get height on them, then great. Swinging around, we have a regular ligularia. We have little hibiscus that we picked up last year. It's going to take a little while to kind of establish itself. Then along the back this year, that's where my gunrow was, but I'm going to be planting a few of my cannas and a few other bits and pieces along the back there, mostly to hide the hedge, which we inherited as a rather half dead hedge. Then over here we have, you can see I've been having to protect this year. We have fields down the bottom end. Rabbits have absolutely decimated anything that's trying to grow, but we have some Achillea terracotta colour, and we've got some cannas in here. So we're going to have the feathery Achilleas with the orangey terracotta colour. The cannas is a dark canna with a nice bright pillbox red. Swing ourselves around on the other side, we have this raised bed. We have a few bits and pieces in here. Everything's not looking great because, say, we had it at least -10, if not -15, overnight every night for a full week, with it not getting above freezing during the day. So even my choicea, which is normally pretty bulletproof, has had a big hit. But as you can see underneath, absolutely fine, so it will regrow the growth this year quite comfortably. Then here we have a Eucalyptus gregsoniana. That was a new addition last year, trying to get some shade on the pond because we get a lot of blanket weed. This garden is quite open, but it's growing well. What's not growing well? My acacia, bless it. Acacia delbata, I think, has more than likely snuffed it. Try and get it so the sun's not behind. Yeah, but this is not looking good. I've scratched all the way down to the stump and there's no sign of green. If it's had it, it's had it. This is the second one that I've tried to grow. First one I got and lost during the Beast from the Easts as a small plant. This one I've got as a bigger plant, hopefully as a stabiliser for this whole bed. It's obviously not going to work. If it does shoot from the roots, which would be fantastic, it'll be lifted, stuck in a pot, and I've got a couple of ideas of where it's a bit more sheltered for it. But I will need something to fill this bed. Next to it you saw my only, I think, Trachycarpus fortunii. I've only got a couple of plums. This is the only fortunii. This has been moved around a few times. Originally it was around where the Rosa Banksea was. I've moved it out there so it's got a bit more sun. In amongst here we have dahlias, gingers, a couple of cannas in here, another fatsia. Got a couple of vines, some grapevines and some pots. They're going to be moved up towards the house this year. They've been sat in those pots for about 3 or 4 years, bless them, so they need a new home. Then we have the main tree of the garden, which is a apple tree. This is a cooking apple. It done well for us for the first couple of years. I've given it some heavy pruning because it was getting too big. Underneath we have all the daffodils that we inherited when we moved in. Then we've got some stocks that I've lifted from other gardens and just healed in over the winter. And you can see I've got a couple of Mahonia aquifolias in here. to try and build up a bit of a bed. Then over this side we have a chocolate vine. It's doing fantastically. It's growing up what was a cherry blossom or a plum tree, I forget now. We inherited a very sick tree and it passed away after about a year of us looking after it. But I mean, when I say this has had it, this is literally ready to come down, so I need something in here to take over as the support for this. Got a couple of my wife's roses as you come through into the last part of the garden. Then we have an Indian bean tree. This is a couple of years old in the ground now. It's growing very well. I need something though to go over here, preferably evergreen, because I have a lot of hellebores and ferns down here that I want to keep sheltered from the sun, because that over there is east and then that's west, so it's in basically full sun during the summer. Then down here it's a lot less tropical looking, but we have a few elder trees, we have some gingers, peonies coming through now nicely, tulips, centurias, some more daffodils, some hydrangeas down there, an acer. We were very lucky and inherited this acer up by the pond. It was really misshapen, with the roots were basically coiled down like a corkscrew. I've lifted that. We've got a couple more Phylostachys bamboos. They haven't done so well since I planted them in the ground. It was a couple of years ago that I had them in pots for a while because I didn't get the chance to get them in the ground, and they really suffered. Then down here we have some New Zealand privet. I'm not sure what's happened, but last year, whether it was the drought, a few of them started to deteriorate, and then over the winter they've basically just snuffed it. But then ones right next to them, you can see, look, either side of it, perfectly healthy. This one snuffed it, completely dead. And then over here I'm just starting to try and get some structure in, so we've got another choice here, looking really quite unwell at the moment, but I'm sure it will bounce back once it's grown in. Some Sorboreas, I've got a few of these just starting to pop through now. Then over this side I've got some more peony and some herbaceous perennials that I've just literally healed in. A couple of roses, hydrangea. And then we'll take you back up. Lucky we've got quite a nice greenhouse we put in. Let's have a little look, get out of the wind, it's getting cold. Cyathea, I think this has had it as well. I've not protected them in the past, although the knuckle feels possibly okay. But yeah, unheated greenhouse, not good. All doing fine. Cycad is doing great. I even had a little pup sprout last year. Silk tree, Phoenix canariensis, some Allostriatula and a couple of agaves, all doing fine. Some fuchsias and bits and pieces, and this really nice little rhododendron linearifolium. You can see it's just starting to come out into blossom. Bought that last year when it was in full bloom, so it's been sat in its pot again for another year. Need to find somewhere for it. I have a habit of buying plants and then neglecting them in their pots. Then last couple of beds we have Tetrapanax. This got hit quite hard this year by the frost, but that's solid, so I don't think the growth points have died on it. That one has, but the others aren't too bad. I'm sure it will reshoot from down before. You can see when we've had other previous bad years and it's been fine. Carried on growing, hard grower. Underneath, Ceochrocosmia. And then in here you can just about start to pick out some giant lilies that are coming through already. A clump of Canatani, my Chimerops humilis. And then the main victims of this frost, my Echiums. I started cutting them all back, and this one was actually okay. Well, I say okay, it wasn't any green on it, but it wasn't rotten. We'll see whether it will reshoot or not. I doubt it. So I did make a point of leaving that one just in case there's any growth points left. Some Hemerochilus, Mahonia softcaress, and another little baby Chimerops volcano down here. Then, bit of a bomb site at the moment. We've got the barbecue area. This used to house an old shed on it, so the slab was there from already, and I figured I might as well make a use of it. So I'm slowly getting there with that one. And then come back round to the main patio area of the house. Some more bamboo in tubs. A leaking water butt, I need to replace that. Then we've got my Riem palmatum starting to shoot through nicely now. Got my Fugesia wall through here, an olive tree that we picked up last year. I won't go to them now because I'm starting to run out of light, but my pink cordlines seem to be okay. They've taken a bit of a hit from the frost because they've been protected by the Fugesia. The growing point looks to be okay. Then got a couple of Yucca gloriosa variegated through there. I'm going to be redoing that bed this year hopefully, so they're going to be lifted and moved somewhere else. Then we've got the Butia capita in its pot. It's broken its pallet. It's seriously heavy. It took about 5 of us just to get it in that pot. And then we've got a couple of aces. So that's the end of tonight's tour. Starting to lose light already. It's already getting well on for just over 20 minutes. I'm going to do another kind of update in a couple of weeks time. I've got a few bits and pieces I want to do. My wife's away this weekend, so I've got kind of 4 days. I'm going to go out, maybe treat myself to some more plants, and try and get some bits and pieces in. Get some not hardscaping, but like some solid shrubs, small trees, that kind of thing, kind of planted in, because I'm wanting a bit more of a canopy over most of it. But until then,